was elected president in 1981, he decided to launch this huge project called Grand Louvre. So the renovation took almost 8 years. 3 years were dedicated to the study, feasibility phase, what we should do, what should be done for this, and how we can implement this project. And then after, with the help of the architect, 5 years of work were necessary to recreate this Grand Louvre. And the idea, as I said, was to expand the museum when removing the Ministry of Economy in wing, what we call wing Richelieu, to have more place for the collection, of course, and also to rethink about the circulation of the visitors with new entrances and new passageways. So as I said, we managed to reallocate the Ministry of Economy. They managed to deploy the collection. We create different escalators and access, so there were free access to visit the museum, inside to access to the galleries. In the basement, they have created these new spaces for audience, with a shopping mall, with restaurants. Okay, when I say shopping mall, it's really dedicated to arts. It's not a proper shopping mall. But there are also restaurants, because the lack of restaurants was obvious in this museum. Nobody could have a proper lunch. So they create what they call Restaurama. I think you have like, I don't know, 10 or 12 different kinds of restaurants from all over the world. So everybody can find something to eat easily. And one of a technical point of view, which was very important, and I mentioned that when you are thinking about the technical circulation of flows of artworks, they create a long corridor of 1.4 kilometers underground to make a connection between the storage, the technical part, and the galleries. So this project was not only to improve the visit or to preserve the collection, but also participating to the technical system and process. Second example, Musée d'Orsay. I mentioned it before. Musée d'Orsay is the second museum in France in terms of audience. This museum is opposite to Louvre, along the river called the Seine. And this museum before was a railway station, so which was built in 1990. And was a station for 70 years only. So imagine this is a huge building for only 70 years of exploitation. So we closed this railway station in 1975. Then different projects were on the table, I should say. One was to create a luxury hotel, but this project was abandoned, and Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, a former president, decided to create, because he was also amateur of 19th century arts, and he wanted to create a dedicated museum to the 19th century, and specifically the second part of the 19th century, because Louvre is displaying artworks until 1850, and Musée d'Orsay is displaying artworks from the 1850 until 1940, just before the First World War. So this collection, the collection display, they are part of different other museums, such as Louvre, and also a previous museum called Jeu de Paume, where we display the Impressionism collection, the French Impressionism collection. So this is a merge of collection, and to display this collection, we wanted to have a huge place. That's why we have this place renovated, which opened in 1860. So the idea also was to keep the building as it was. Of course, we removed the railway lines, but we keep the clock, for instance, which was one of the iconic parts of the building. The nave, as you can see at the top on the left, of course, has been preserved. So there is no more train, but now we display sculpture of the collection of the 19th century. So the idea was also to, because this building was not a museum, so we have, and you can imagine the surface, so we have to imagine just the air condition, how to deal with sculpture is not a big issue, but painting is an issue. Photography is an issue. Drawings, because they are very fragile. And we had to think about what to do within the galleries, but mainly within the nave. And the idea was also because, and I didn't mention that before, but it's very important, this is what is the narrative, what we want to say to the visitors, what is the story. I know that you know perfectly what is the storytelling, but you have to apply this to a museum and what we call more scientifically what is a SCP, what is a scientific and cultural project. But from this, you have to think about what is the narrative, what you want to say, to tell to the visitors. And when you have that in mind, it's easier to work with the architect and the scenographer because you know exactly what you have in mind and what you want to share with the visitors. In that case, there is a strong collaboration with the architect. But once you have defined your project, most of the time, architects arrive too early in the project, and the gesture of the architecture is becoming the main point. I mean, is becoming the main point of discussion, but not the content, not the narrative. So this mistake, unfortunately, we have it in most of the new museums where, first of all, this project is validated because of the architecture, but not because of the content, or partly because of the content. Another example, which is on the place of Concorde, Place de la Concorde, which is one of the famous places in Paris. We are not too far from Louvre and Musée d'Orsay. Actually, we are not too far from the Parliament, so we are in the center of Paris. This building was, as you can see now, it was a long project because there were many ideas on the table. And it took some time this project took 10 years actually, because we started the discussion in 2011 when the Ministry of the Headquarters of Navy left the building. And again, there was a question of creating a luxury hotel because near this Hotel de la Marine, you have Crillon, which is one of the luxury palaces in Paris. And the idea was also to create a new palace, a new hotel, luxury hotel. So this project was abandoned because Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, again, was no, I want this to be part of the patrimony of France. And so starting visitors to visit part of the course. I think it's a few. Collection from the 18th. All this building has been completely renovated. On top of that, there is an immersive experience for visitors. Receive they can interact with the main character, which was part of the history. industrial place. Actually, this place that we call Lens, a large market in 70. After that, we were wondering what we could do with this. So you can see on the left the different warehouse, the place where it has been done with this 15 years after. So this live market was created in the 19th century. They closed in the 17th, and again, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing decided to create a museum of science and industry. He asked a studio to work on this, an agency to work on the concept, and they launched a competition to find an architect 3 years after. So 3 years of study before launching the competition to find the architect from different buildings. Actually, we have different buildings on the site. So what we call La Villette is a park. Actually, is the biggest urban park in Europe. And you can see, maybe I showed you before. Sorry. You can see it on the previous. Yeah, you can see it's very huge. It's not along the Seine, it's along another canal in the east part of Paris, but it's a huge, huge place. So, part of the renovation was dedicated to this previous existing building, but new buildings as well were built. Starting by the Zenith, which is a concert hall, opened in 84. Then the market was quickly renovated as well to be an exhibition center. Then we create La Géode. You can see this huge hall. It's an IMAX cinema, opened in 85. They inaugurate the park in 87, but just before we inaugurate the City of Science and Industry, which is one of the top 5 museums visited in Paris. Then after they opened the conservatory, National Conservatory of Museum and Dance, that you can see on the left at the bottom part. And recently, they opened the Philharmonie, which is a huge concert hall designed by Jean Nouvel, again, the same architect. So the Philharmonie opened in 2015. So just to show you that from the first idea at the end of the middle of the 70s, and 20 years after, almost more than 20 years after, 30, 40 years after, we have these new buildings coming up and part of, I should say, the cultural life of this part of Paris, which again was not very well equipped in terms of cultural, leisure venues. My last example is, so we jump back to the center of Paris. It's very interesting because this building was supposed to be temporary. It has been designed for the Universal exhibition of 1900 in Paris, and this building was not supposed to stay. It was supposed to be destroyed or reallocated, but it was not sure. So most of the buildings from this Universal exhibition were destroyed. They finally kept it, and they create this. They use this space for exhibition, fairs, events. For instance, you can see that there were some art exhibitions. We have sports events, also artists we wanted to display here, fashion show, yeah, so many events. So it's a place in the center of Paris, very well known. And in this building, part of this building, there is a national gallery, also displaying art exhibitions. But this one as you can see before and after. So the idea of the renovation now is we are at the second phase. The first phase was in 2014, if I remember. They renoved completely the roof, as you can see. This part was completely renovated because it was completely broken and it was very dangerous for the visitors. So they decided first to renovate the roof. But the roof took all the budget of the renovation. So it was impossible to create new spaces, to reallocate spaces, to think about the flows and the experience of the visitors. Now we have a budget to do it. So the idea is to rethink inside the building the circulation, the services, to give access to the different terraces, to expand, which is the most important part, to expand the rental spaces from 80,000 to 23,000 square meters. So it's a huge expansion.